Morning, everybody, and welcome to my first MLB The Show 19 Legend Wish List. In this series, I'm going to be talking about legends that I would like to see come into the game for MLB The Show 19, just into the game in general, but more specifically in Diamond Dynasty. So I'm going to go into depth about the overall that I think they should be. I'm going to go over stats and the year that I think they could get cards for. But, you know, I'm going to be discussing a lot about like different program ideas for them, or different versions of cards that they could possibly get. All right, so I'm going to lay down a few different rules here just to let you guys in on how I'm going to make these lists. All right, rule number one: there are absolutely no restrictions. All right, so that means they may or may not be coming into the game this year, and also they do not have to be currently signed with the MLB PA, I believe it is now. I think they have to get the rights from them, or just like however they get the rights. They don't have to be signed with SDS whatsoever. These are just cards that I would like to see in the game next year. All right. Rule number two: I'm going to have 2 pitchers and 2 hitters for each list. For the 2 pitchers, I'm going to be having 1 starter and 1 reliever that I would like to see in the game next year. And then for the 2 hitters, that could be, you know, any position, just 2 random hitters that I think that I would like to see in next year's game. All right. In list number 3, or on part 3, I actually made some graphics for you guys, so you guys aren't just staring at a blank gameplay. All right. So I have some ideas, or the statistics of these players for you guys. All right, so you don't have to look them up. I already made the graphic for you guys, so it'll pop up whenever I talk about the player. You guys will understand once I actually get into the list. But yeah, the yellow font, or the numbers in yellow font, are the numbers that they led their league in that year. And then if there's an asterisk next to that number, that means they also led the entire major leagues in that category. All right. Once we get into the list, you guys will start understanding a little bit more. Number 4, I kind of already covered. It's going to be kind of like I'm going to mostly be doing their peak year, or, you know, just some version of their card that I think could be implemented into the game. You know, and then once again, I'll be throwing around potential program ideas for these guys. So like, oh, should this guy be a career arc, or, you know, should he be a 99 overall? Would he be like a good event reward? You know, just stuff like that. And then the 5th thing is, these are players that I would like to see. If you guys have any suggestions, please leave them down in the comments below. But yeah, just because I list these guys off does not mean that they are actually coming into the game. These are just some guys that I would love to use in the game for next year. So without further ado, let's go ahead and kick it off with the first legend I would like to see in next year's game, and that is Larry Walker. All right. There are many different ways that you could potentially go with Larry Walker. He's currently on the Hall of Fame ballot. I think he should definitely be a Hall of Famer, but hey, you know, you guys have your own opinions. But yeah, career-wise, he has an MVP. He's a 5-time All-Star with 7 Gold Gloves, 3 Silver Sluggers, and he has 3 career batting titles. But yeah, there are many different ways that you could potentially go with this Larry Walker guy. Potentially have like an Impact Veteran 2005 card of him. That was his last season in St. Louis. You know, you could probably go with his 1992 season. Where he did a lot of great things. You could maybe even go with his 1999 season. You know, any of his All-Star seasons you could go with, but the one I'm going to be discussing in this video is his MVP season in 1997, guys. All right. In 1997, oh my God, was this guy a monster. All right. So he had a 366 batting average with a 452 on-base percentage and a 720 slugging percentage, which would come out to be a 1,172 OPS, guys. That is almost a 1,200 OPS in one season. All right, just think about that. In one season, yeah, I know a lot of you are going to be saying, oh, well, Coors Field. Well, yeah, I've heard that argument. I've heard that argument about 1,000 times, all right? Wait until I get into the other statistics and you'll see why he was MVP this season, all right? But yes, indeed, he did lead lead the entire league, not only the National League, but the entire major leagues in both on-base percentage and slugging percentage, all right? OPS plus, he had a 178 OPS plus that season, and you might be wondering, why am I throwing OPS plus in here? That's because that is park adjusted, all right? And the league average is 100, so that means 178 for one season is astronomical. All right, so just put that into perspective of what this guy did in that season. All right, he also led the National League with 49 home runs. He also had 130 RBIs, 33 stolen bases. So if he had a card in MLB The Show, his speed would be pretty damn good. All right, he also had 46 doubles, and he walked 78 times and struck out only 90. All right, and I did the math for this, and that would come out to a 1.15 strikeout to walk ratio. That is absolutely ridiculous. That means for almost every single walk, or for almost every single strikeout, he was walking, all right? Just a little bit over one. So this guy was also, he was just an absolute monster in 1997. Not to mention the fact that he also won the National League MVP that year with the Colorado Rockies, but he was also an All-Star, he also won a Gold Glove, and he also won a Silver Slugger. What an absolute stud of a year this guy had, all right? And again, you guys are probably screaming Coors Field at your screens right now, but you know what? It doesn't really matter, because you know what? You can't make up these numbers. Like the guy absolutely dominated the league in this season. Personally, if I were SDS and I'm going to be doing the overall ratings based off of what I think they should go back to. So like the MLB The Show 17 ratings, all right, where they're absolutely no immortals. If this guy had a card come into the game next year, it would 100% have to be a 99 overall. The guy can hit for contact. He can hit for power. He had speed. He had a generational arm out there in right field. He won a Gold Glove that year, so that means he did something really well in the field. This guy would be the quintessential five-tool guy that you would have. You could probably compare this kind of a card to a Ken Griffey Jr., or like a Barry Bonds if we get him in the game. But yeah, Larry Walker is probably the #1 legend on my wish list. Next, I'm going to go ahead and talk about another guy who played in that same exact season as Larry Walker, and it is a lefty reliever. This is my relief pitcher for this video, and it is the 1997 version of Randy Myers. And you're wondering, why in the world did he pick Randy Myers of all people? We want like the Mariano Rivera's, or we want like like the Jonathan Papelbons of the world to come into the game next year. Why Randy Myers? The one reason I picked Randy Myers is because of the fact that there is a lack of left-handed relievers in this year's game, all right? You guys are probably going to see a bunch of lefties coming into my wish list in the next coming weeks, all right? But yeah, the reason I chose Randy Myers, again, there's many different ways that you could go with his cards, all right? You could go with a 1990 All-Star version where he finished 5th in Cy Young, was an All-Star that year, had 31 saves and a 2.08 ERA, but I decided to go with his 1997 version because of the crazy, ridiculous numbers that he put up at the very old age of 34, all right? 34 is actually is like you're starting to think a little bit about retirement in baseball, all right? So for the numbers that he put up at his age in this season, it's kind of crazy, all right? In 59 and 2/3 of innings, he had a 151 earned run average, all right? So he didn't even allow 2 runs per inning on average. His ERA plus, once again, ERA plus is a ballpark adjusted stat, was a 293. A 293 ERA plus, all right? OPS plus and ERA plus, the league average is 100. That's all you need to know about those stats. A 293 is well above the league average. All right, and here's the crazy thing, guys. He didn't even lead the league during that season. And let me remind you that this is the heart of the steroid era right here. All right, so a 293 ERA plus and a 150 .51 ERA. That's mind-boggling. He also ended up putting up a 1.156 whip, and he had 8.4 Ks per nine with a 3.3 walks per nine to go along with a 7.1 hits per nine, which is actually very low for a relief, which is actually very low for, like anybody. The Ks per, and his his strikeout to walk ratio is a 2.55, meaning that for every almost 3, so 2.5 strikeouts, he ended up getting 1 walk. All right, so that's not the craziest ratio, but again, this is the heart of the steroid era, guys. So guys were getting walked left and right. So getting a strikeout in this era was kind of a pretty terrific feat. All right, and not to mention the fact that he also had 56 strikeouts and only 22 walks. All right, so you can kind of see that his control and maybe his walks per nine would be a little bit lower than a lot of the relief pitchers in the game right now. And his strikeouts per nine probably wouldn't be too high either, but his hits per nine might be, up there towards like the mid 90s. It's just a possibility to throw out there. And this stat actually kind of blew me out of the water right here. In the entire 59 2/3 innings, he only allowed 10 earned runs, guys. 10! In almost 60 innings, he only allowed 10 runs. That's ridiculous for this kind of a guy, all right? And then he also led the entire league and the American League with 45 saves that season. And oh my god, that just caps off this card. That just kind of seals the deal right there. During this same season, he was also named to the All-Star team, and he also got 4th in the Cy Young voting and 4th in the MVP voting, guys. 4th in the MVP for a relief pitcher is unheard of nowadays. Like, that's completely, like back then, that was probably something, that was probably around the norm back then for relief pitchers, but nowadays, it is, that's kind of crazy, all right? And if I were to give this guy a rating, I'd probably give him an 89 overall rating, just because this was more so on the latter end of his career. He was getting up there in age, and looking at his final season, in 1998, which was, he only played one more year after this 1997 season. It is completely, it is crazy how much of a difference it made. The next year, he followed up with a 492 all year long, with combined with the Padres and the Toronto Blue Jays. All right. So at age 34, 89 overall, you know what? I feel like I'd throw this guy on my team day one. Honestly, I don't know what kind of a program he could be. Maybe he could be like an impact veteran type kind of program if they bring back the programs from 17. Maybe they could bring him in as a career arc. Maybe bring him in as an event reward or a season's reward. But yeah, overall, I would just love to see this Randy Myers card in the game next year. The next legend I'm going to be talking about is one of my all-time favorite players growing up, and somebody I would love to see in Diamond Dynasty next year, and that is former outfielder, I should say, from the Houston Astros, Lance Berkman, all right? And again, there are multiple ways that you could go with this guy. You could go with his 2001 season. You could go with his 2006 season where he hit 315 and 45 home runs. You could definitely go with something like his. You could definitely go with an impact veteran card from his 2011 season in St. Louis, where he hit 301 and helped the Cardinals push for that World Series, and that's where he won his championship ring. But the season that I'm going to be talking about with Lance Berkman is his 2002 season, all right? So in this season, he ended up hitting with a 292, a 405, and a 578 slash, which caps out to be at a 982 OPS. So, it's not the craziest OPS in the world. He definitely had some better seasons. But it's not the worst slash in the world. All right, there have definitely been a lot worse. All right, and again, OPS plus of 150. The league average is about is 100. So he's well above that. He's well above the league average in that. He also had 42 home runs, and in that season, he led the National League with 128 RBIs, and if you're wondering, you're like, Zach, the Astros are in the American League. It's because in 2002, the Astros were still a part of the National League, all right? He only had 8 stolen bases that season, so his speed probably wouldn't be too crazy. Maybe see around the maybe high 40s, low 50s. So nothing too crazy because his outfield range was actually kind of decent. He had 35 doubles that year. He had 107 walks to go along with 118 strikeouts. All right. So if you thought Larry Walker's strikeout to walk ratio was crazy, look at Lance Berkman's. His was a 1.10 strikeout to walk ratio. All right. To put that into perspective, that's only 0.05 points below Larry Walker, but still, that is absolutely crazy. I just find it absolutely nuts that this guy ended up getting put on the Hall of Fame ballot and in my opinion got snubbed. I think he should have gotten at least 5%, but he put up a season like this and he didn't do it just once, all right? This wasn't just a one-off. He did this, let's see how many times, like for almost a decade. Guys, he did this for like 6 to 8 years, all right? So he was a pretty solid guy, all right? He also ended up getting named to the National League All-Star team, and he also finished third in MVP voting in this season. He did not win the Silver Slugger this year, believe it or not, because the 3 players who ended up getting the Silver Slugger that season, I believe, were Vladimir Guerrero, Barry Bonds, and Sammy Sosa. So when you have competition like that, it's kind of hard to get an award for going up against such good competition. But once again, if I'm San Diego Studios, I'm giving this guy a very healthy 93 overall card. Would absolutely love to see this guy in the game. His power would probably be pretty dang high. Fielding probably wouldn't be as high, especially for a center field type kind of guy where fielding and speed are the most valuable, and that's where he played the majority of his 2002 season. But he also played in the corner outfield spots for a little bit, but he played, I believe, 122 games in center field in 2002. But I believe 93 overall is a pretty good overall rating because his power would probably be pretty high from both sides of the plate, and then especially with him being a switch hitter, and then like him being able to also hit for contact with those 128 RBIs, especially when his teammates are on base. So like his clutch would probably be up there as well. His discipline and his vision would probably be pretty dang high too. So yeah, overall, I think 93 overall would be a pretty good rating for this Lance Berkman card. And the final guy that we are going to be talking about in this first Legends Wishlist video is going to be one of my all-time favorite starting pitchers, John Smoltz. Now, once again, just like everybody else in this list and from every list here on out, you could go with almost any single season out of his career and you'd be able to make a pretty dang good card for him. You could go for like his season in 2003 where he had a 1.12 ERA was named to the All-Star team. You could go with his 2002 season where he had 55 saves, and that would make a pretty dang good relief pitcher card if you ask me. You could maybe even go with like his 1998 card, or 1992 or 1989. All right, again, there are so many different ways you could go with this guy, but the season that I'm going to be talking about with him is going to be the 1996 season. All right, he is going to be our starting pitcher for this first Legends Wishlist video. All right. Oh my God, did this guy completely dominate the league in 1996? All right. So he led the National League with 253 and 2/3 innings pitched. All right, that alone shows how dominant of a guy he was, that he was able to stay on the field and go out and dominate each and every single time. All right, his win-loss record was 24 wins to 8 losses. He led the National League with a 750 or a 75 win percentage. All right, guys, that alone should tell you how dominant this guy was. But then again, wins and losses aren't, that's probably not the best stat to judge a pitcher on. But nonetheless, he did lead the entire MLB and the National League with 24 wins in that single season. All right. He also had a 294 earned run average, which is pretty dang low considering the league average is probably around 350. He also led the entire league, the entire MLB, with 276 strikeouts, and he only walked 55 batters. All right, I'm gonna get to the strikeout to walk ratio in a minute, but it is crazy. All right. And then he also led the entire MLB with a 264 whip. All right, you guys are probably asking yourselves, Zach, what is this FIP you're talking about? All right, so FIP is basically it's called fielding independent pitching. That's what it stands for. And it converts the 3 true outcomes for a pitcher, and it turns it into an earned run average like number, all right? So these are only the things that the pitcher can control, all right? So it's a number that only situations the pitcher can control, so it's not even including fielding errors or maybe a passed ball from a catcher. Stuff like that, stuff that John Smoltz himself could not control, or the starting pitcher could not control. All right. So basically just completely takes out the fielding factor. All right. He led the league with a 264. All right. That's crazy considering the league average, considering that the average pitcher's FIP is going to be a 350. All right. And then his whip was a 1.001. It was barely one, guys. He barely allowed one runner on per inning pitched, which is crazy. He also had an ERA plus of a 149, which again, a park adjusted stat. He also led the league that season in strikeouts per 9 with a 9.8. He almost struck out 10 batters for every 9 innings he pitched, guys. And then he also walked only 2 batters for every 9 innings and only allowed 7 hits for every 9 innings, which, again, what kind of a guy does not put those kinds of numbers up? And then his strikeout to walk ratio is off the charts. It is at a 5.02. All right. That means for every 5 strikeouts, he would walk 1 batter. That's crazy. That number right there should just tell you, like, this guy would be an absolute stud in this game. Obviously, he was named to the All-Star game in that season. He was also the National League Cy Young, as you guys can probably tell just by the fact that 5 of these numbers are highlighted in yellow, and 4 of those highlighted numbers have asterisks next to them. All right, this guy completely dominated the league that year. And then he also got 11th in MVP voting. I don't remember who won MVP that year. Maybe the comments can let me know. Either that or I'll flash it up on the screen. Or like the rankings and all that fun stuff. But yeah, if I were SDS, I'm giving this guy so close to a 99 overall, but I'm giving him just a 98 just because I think there are a lot of pitchers that could make their way to the game next year that can definitely reach that 99 overall threshold. Not saying that John Smoltz is bad. I'm just saying that 99 overall, his per 9s and his velocity and control would probably be through the roof, which could push him to a 99. But I think 98 would kind of be the threshold, considering that he pitched with Maddox. There's also guys who could potentially come into the game next year, like, maybe like a Lefty Grove or like a Randy Johnson. You never know. Maybe even a Roger Clemens could come into the game. So, 98 overall for John Smoltz doesn't seem too outlandish. Another reason why I threw John Smoltz in here is because, in my honest opinion, if SDS is doing what I think they're going to do, I believe they might be bringing multiple commentary teams to the game here, which could potentially mean that we get a bunch of we could get a bunch of the guys in the commentary booth as legends in MLB The Show. So I'm talking about guys like Kevin Millar, I'm talking about guys like John Smoltz who could potentially be in the booth. Maybe guys like Mark DeRosa and Dan Plesac could also make their way into the game. But you never know, all right? I might talk about that later in another video. But yeah, that's another main reason why I ended up putting John Smoltz on this list, because he might come to the game as a commentator next year, and we might get multiple commentary teams. But that is going to end the first Legend Wishlist video for MLB The Show 19. If you guys have any suggestions, make sure you guys leave a comment and just saying like, oh, I want this guy or this guy, all right? I want to know your guys' suggestions, because if you do, there is a very high chance that I could whip up a card and, give my opinion on the guy, all right? But that's going to do it. Make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. I'll see you guys in the next one, and as always, have a great rest of your morning.